even though there had been anti-Judaism based on the religion of the Jews in Christian understanding that they were Christ killers. They used the word deicide, the killing of God. And a lot of this took place because, as I said earlier, a misinterpretation of the scriptures. Once Nazism and Adolf Hitler came on the scene, the idea of the extermination of the Jews was based on, as Gotti said, the fact that the Jews were not just, Judaism was not just a religion, but it was a race. And so that was what brought in there, the idea of racism and nationalism, which brought about the horrors of the Holocaust.
Because if you think about it, what we're talking about is expanding, right? Like you were saying, even expanding the idea of salvation, that it's not as narrow definition as possible. And what the Nazis did, they made, in their own way, of course it wasn't a religious salvation, but they made the criteria so narrow that it was a compilation of nationalism and racial identity. Then it was so narrow and it really affected everybody. So that, I think, had to be countered.
Right. And Vatican II, again, one of the reasons it was called was to counter the Holocaust, to counter the Shoah. But it was also very touchy because taking place during the 1960s, you also had, it was very interesting, you also had the bishops in the Middle East pleading not to make too many concessions to the Jews because they were living in Muslim countries. And it would make the relationships very, very tentative and very dangerous. Pope John just said, listen, we're going to move on. This is the right thing to do. And with all of the turmoils that we find, the Arab-Jewish conflicts in the 60s and so on, this is the context in which Vatican II was called and carried on. So it was a very, very important moment. In fact, theologians would say today, many of them would, that because of the Holocaust, theology and one's understanding of God had to change. In other words, theology now has to be dealt with in the modern age with a mind to what happened during the Holocaust. Because obviously the traditional understandings of God, at least the doctrinal understandings of God, sometimes the scriptural understandings of God, were shaken. We're shaken. The Jews survived, yes, but they lost again.
Yeah. I think it went to the core of the image of God in a human being. So the Holocaust took it so far as to really try to eliminate even that. And for religious institutions, as much as they wanted to condemn other faith, but once a group of people took that conversation to the level of the erasing the image of God in a person, then that, I think, they couldn't stand for.